Should you stay in a hostel, an Airbnb, or a hotel if you're remote working? This completely depends on the kind of work that you do. If you have to be on a lot of conference calls, you probably don't want to be in a hostel. They're very noisy. You'll be working in your dorm sometimes you'll be in the common area, but there's a lot of people moving around. You don't really have your own space. Even if you have a private room, there's probably people moving around in the corridors, shouting, talking. It's not the most conducive place if you want to do a lot of conference calls. Also, if you're doing a conference call in your dorm and someone else is sat there on the phone going blah, 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 you can't exactly ask them to stop. Personally, don't believe you should be on your phone in the dorm, but you also shouldn't be on a conference call in the dorm. This is like everyone's space. It's not the most conducive to actually doing these calls and working if you have to be on the phone with people. If you're the type of person you don't have to be on calls and you are very disciplined, so if there's a lot of stuff going on around you, you can still work, hostel is fine. It's a cheaper alternative than either a hotel or an Airbnb. If you need your own space and you want to do your own cooking, probably go into an Airbnb. You're going to have your own space so you can do calls. The Wi-Fi is probably pretty good. You can even ask the host, hey, can you do a Wi-Fi speed test for me so that I know if this is adequate. I've got another video, it's in the description here, about like what kind of Wi-Fi you need and why you need a backup, etc. But yeah, if you want to do a lot of calls and you want to have your own space, go to an Airbnb. Don't be the person in the hostel that's like, oh, it's too loud. It's a hostel, what do you expect, you know? Hotel. Why would you go to a hotel over an Airbnb? This is if you want your room cleaned all the time. Maybe you want room service, you want someone to cook your meals because you don't want to cook it yourself. Maybe they've got a gym in the hotel, a swimming pool. If you go to a fancy enough hotel, they will have all of these amenities that you don't get elsewhere. But you have a lack of a social side. The reason I like staying in a hostel so much is because you instantly have a group of people that you can interact with and be friends with. And I don't have to spend a lot of my working time on calls with people. A lot of my stuff is very autonomous. Can you do what you say you're going to do of a high enough quality? And I don't need to be on a call for that. I can just get my stuff done. So I like a hostel environment. Another downside of a hostel, I'll just pop this in at the end. Sometimes the Wi-Fi is not that good, but you also get that with Airbnb and hotel. I'd say on a sliding scale, the best Wi-Fi is going to be Airbnb because that's probably someone's house that they live in. The next is going to be the hostel, and the next is going to be hotel. A lot of hotels, they don't really have that good a Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi is pretty far away from the rooms. I'd say hostel and hotel are kind of on the same level of Wi-Fi, but with a hostel you have a common area which probably has access to a good Wi-Fi, whereas in a hotel, a lot of them, they don't have a common area other than the main lobby. So to recap this, if you need to do a lot of calls, get an Airbnb. Don't try and do your calls in a hostel. If you don't need to do a lot of calls and you're fine with distractions, hostel it is. Absolutely fine. If you want your room changed all the time, go to a hotel. See ya.